attachment from my Aunt Jacqueline. I figured it was just another accidental clip of her garden, but when I pressed play, the breath completely left my lungs. There was my entire family gathered around my mother's kitchen island, drinking wine that I had paid for. My brother laughed hysterically, throwing his hands up as he said, "She's a pathetic failure, honestly. It's embarrassing." My mother nodded, pouring herself another glass, and replied, "She should be grateful we even let her come to Thanksgiving." The camera panned to my aunt, who gave a wicked smirk before the video abruptly cut off. They had no idea the phone was recording, and they certainly had no idea they had just sent it to me. They thought I was a failure, completely blind to the fact that I had been secretly paying every single one of their bills for years. My name is Tracy, and I am 31 years old. I sat in my car, staring at my phone screen in the dim light of my garage, watching the 45-second video repeat for the 5th time. The audio cut through the silence like a knife. There was my entire family laughing over expensive wine in a kitchen I paid to remodel. My golden child brother, David, smirked as he tossed a crumpled napkin into the sink. "She's a pathetic failure, honestly. It's embarrassing to tell my friends what she does," he sneered. My mother, Helen, laughed softly, waving her hand dismissively. "She should be grateful we even invite her to family dinners. She contributes absolutely nothing." They had always seen me as the broke, struggling black sheep because I didn't flash luxury items or brag about my life. They thought my quiet nature meant I was drowning, but their arrogant perception couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, I am a senior cloud systems engineer pulling in a high 6-figure salary, and I owned 3 profitable rental properties across the city. I never flaunted my wealth because I valued humility, but more importantly, because I loved them. For the past 3 years, I had been using my success to quietly shield them from total financial ruin. They genuinely believed their luxurious lifestyles were the result of good fortune, completely blind to the fact that my bank account was the only reason they had roofs over their heads. To fully understand how deep their betrayal cut, you have to understand the web of lies I had to spin just to keep them afloat. 3 years ago, Helen was on the absolute brink of losing the family home after defaulting on her mortgage. Around that same time, David's tech consulting business collapsed entirely, leaving him drowning in massive debt. They were drowning, but their toxic pride prevented them from ever asking me for help. So I decided to protect their dignity. I hired a private financial management firm to step in and handle their growing liabilities anonymously. Through that firm, we disguised my monthly financial injections as government-backed relief grants and exclusive corporate relief subsidies. When Helen's mortgage magically stopped foreclosing, she bragged to the neighbors about her incredible luck. When David suddenly qualified for an anonymous angel investor grant that paid off his debts and leased him a brand new luxury BMW, he credited his own brilliance. I watched them thrive off my hidden labor, never wanting a single thank you. But watching that video shattered everything. The very lifestyle they were using to look down on me, the expensive wine they were casually sipping, and the beautiful kitchen island they were gathered around were entirely funded by my secret generosity. They used the breathing room I bought them with my hard work to construct a fantasy world where they were superior, and I was just the unaccomplished loser. The emotional weight of that realization crushed me. I wasn't just dealing with a lack of gratitude. I was dealing with parasites who fed off my kindness while actively plotting to exclude me from the family. The very next evening, my phone buzzed again. It was Helen, her voice dripping with an upbeat, sugary sweetness that made my stomach turn. She was calling to invite me to a massive family reunion dinner at her house over the weekend. "We're celebrating your brother's incredible new business milestone, Tracy," she gushed, completely oblivious to the fact that her sister's accidental video leak had exposed their true malice. "We really want you there, even though we know things have been tough for you lately. Before I tell you what happened when I walked through that door, I have a question for everyone watching. If you accidentally discovered a video of your own family calling you a pathetic failure while you were secretly keeping them out of debt, what would you do? Would you confront them right then and there, or would you play along to teach? I chose to play along. I put on a flawless poker face, took a deep breath, and drove over to the dinner. Walking into that house was surreal. I stood there watching them flash deceptive smiles, acting like loving relatives while treating me with subtle, patronizing pity. David spent the first hour bragging about his brand new luxury car, leaning against the kitchen counter that my bank account paid for. I just smiled, sipped my water, and watched the performance, knowing their entire world was built on sand. As we all sat down around the large dining table, the passive-aggressive remarks started almost immediately. David leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine glass with an air of unearned superiority. "You know, Tracy, it's really a shame you haven't found a stable career path yet," he said loudly, ensuring the entire extended family could hear. "At your age, you should really be looking for something with a real future like what I do." Helen nodded in agreement, giving me a look of calculated pity. "He's right, dear. In fact, since times are so tight for you, we thought it would be fair if you just chipped in a meager $50 tonight to help cover your portion of this expensive dinner." The hypocrisy was staggering. I glanced across the table and caught Aunt Jacqueline looking completely panicked. She kept nervously shifting her gaze between me and her phone, clearly realizing she had mistakenly sent me that damning video. Instead of blowing up, causing a massive scene, or screaming the truth at them, I simply reached into my purse, pulled out a $50 bill, and set it calmly on the table. I smiled warmly at Helen and David, looking them dead in the eyes as I did it. They thought they were asserting their dominance over me, but that moment was my ultimate turning point. As they laughed and pocketed my cash, I made a silent, definitive vow right then and there. I was going to cut their financial life support entirely and let them face the harsh reality they so richly deserved. The following morning, the fake smiles and quiet endurance were officially over. I woke up with a cold, sharp focus and immediately contacted my financial management firm. When my private advisor answered, I didn't hesitate. I gave him a series of direct, irreversible instructions. Freeze every single anonymous subsidy attached to my family's names, effective immediately. The time had come for the next payments to be due, and I was no longer going to play the role of their invisible savior. I instructed my advisor to cancel the automated mortgage payments on Helen's house, leaving the upcoming first-of-the-month balance completely empty. Next, I ordered the immediate termination of the lease coverage and insurance subsidies for David's luxury BMW. For 3 years, I had willingly acted as their financial safety net, absorbing their debts out of a misplaced sense of loyalty. But watching them gleefully tear down my character on that leaked video changed everything. They wanted to believe they were self-made elites while I was a pathetic failure? Fine. It was time to let them experience exactly what their own capabilities could provide. The narrative of my secret generosity was officially over, and a fast-approaching deadline was looming. As the final days of the month ticked away, I felt a profound sense of relief. The trap was set, the automated banking transfers were deleted, and all the major, heavy bills were officially due in less than 24 hours. They were about to find out exactly what happens when the person they despise stops paying for their reality. The first of the month arrived, and right on cue, my House of Cards family began to completely fracture under the weight of reality. It started at exactly 9 in the morning when my phone blew up with panicked calls and frantic text messages. Helen was the first to ring, her voice cracking with a level of terror I had never heard before. Her automated mortgage payment had bounced, and the bank had instantly flagged her account for immediate foreclosure review. She was practically hyperventilating, begging me to come over because she couldn't comprehend how her government grant had suddenly vanished into thin air. Before I could even reply to her, a string of caps lock texts from David flooded my screen. He had just received an urgent repossession warning from the dealership stating that the monthly lease and insurance coverage for his luxury BMW had been abruptly terminated due to non-payment. The high and mighty businessman who had lectured me about stability just days prior was now completely losing his mind. They called a chaotic, emergency family meeting at Helen's house, terrified because their anonymous savior had completely abandoned them. I took my time getting ready, slipping into a sharp, professional outfit that screamed success. When I finally showed up to the meeting, the atmosphere in the kitchen was suffocating. Helen was crying at the island, David was pacing back and forth, and Aunt Jacqueline was staring at the floor in guilty silence. They looked up at me with desperate eyes, expecting the broke, pathetic failure to offer them cheap comfort. I just stood there, calm, cool, and collected, holding my phone tightly in my hand. I unlocked my phone, looked them directly in the eyes, and played that accidental video out loud in the middle of the room. The room fell into a deathly silence as their own mocking voices echoed off the walls. I watched the color completely drain from Helen's and David's faces as they heard themselves call me a pathetic failure. Before they could scramble to offer a single fake apology, my lawyer stepped inside and handed them a thick folder filled with itemized receipts. It detailed every single mortgage payment, car lease, and utility bill I had quietly paid for them over the last 3 years. "You thought I was a failure," I said, my voice cutting through their stunned silence like ice. "But you were actually living off my success. From this moment on, you are entirely on your own." I turned on my heel and walked out of that house, leaving them to collapse under the weight of the massive debts they had brought upon themselves. It was the most liberating moment of my life, a beautiful, fresh start built on the truth. Now, I'm incredibly curious about all of you who have followed my journey until the end. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Did my family get the exact karma at the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached? If you love stories about poetic justice and family secrets being exposed, I have a final screen right now that will definitely surprise you.